Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it Epcot. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World Podcast, the official podcast of the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society. This is episode 54.5, Bringing the World Closer to You. We're going to be taking you back to a visit to FutureCom in Communicore West with two very special guests. But before we get to that, sitting in with me tonight, Mr. Hal Bowers. How you doing tonight, Hal?
Aloha, Todd. How you doing?
Good. Now, I know you kind of got some affinity for this, what's now, unfortunately, the entire building's destroyed, but because we're talking about music tonight.
Yeah. This is going to be a good one. I'm so excited to be able to talk to these folks. I've been looking forward to this for the last month.
So we are going to talk tonight, just shortly here, we're going to talk to Tom Tierney. He is a composer and lyricist. He penned the song Bringing the World Closer to You at the Pavilion, FutureCom Pavilion over at Communicore West. And we're also going to bring on the line Lisa Bastoni, who, if you were at our Retro Magic event, she sang the song because her connection to that pavilion is that her grandfather and with her grandfather and grandmother worked on helping to create the Age of Information exhibit where the song played. So let's dial up the phones and we'll get Tom and Lisa on the line. And Tom, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah. And we also have bringing back is Lisa Bastoni. Her grandfather, Walter Einsel, was the set designer and of Americana folk art, so to speak, that did all the designing of that exhibit. And Lisa, you sang the song Bringing the World Closer to You at our Retro Magic event back in October. And you've been on one of our previous podcast episodes before, so welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
Lisa actually posted a video of about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, of the Age of Information exhibit. And because we restore videos, I said, oh man, we can clean that up a bit and do something with it. And before you know it, she and I started talking. I'm like, whoa, you're the granddaughter of, the people who designed that. And there was so little information about this years ago. So long story short, we got talking to Lisa. We put her on a mini episode like we're doing here. She's a singer-songwriter, and we invite her down for Retro Magic, and she sang your song in front of 350 people, so we might owe you $1.52 royalties. So, and so it's really been an interesting little side story of this small part of a larger attraction that over time people forgot, but here we are piecing all the pieces together. And How has a musical background as well. And you did all sorts of music searches. You couldn't find anything about Tom.
I was using the wrong title. I searched ASCAP and BMI and everything for the Age of Information instead of Bringing the World Closer to You. And I feel like an idiot.
I think that is the official name that the copyright is under.
Yep. I'm like, if I just would have searched on the other thing, I probably would have found you 3 years ago, but like it just never occurred to me.
And I have to ask, hi Lisa, nice to meet you. I presume that the video that you found or that you had included my song, or did it not?
It did include the song. It was a video I think was made by Epcot of the song and the exhibit. Yeah.
That was brought to my attention somehow through, somebody else who had been there like around the opening in the 80s and liked it and somehow discovered it and then sent it to me because he knew me through somebody else. And I mean, and so I was glad to see it, but I don't have instant access to the video, but I know I did see it and it was great.
We'll definitely get you a link to that and a copy of Lisa's rendition of the song too, because it's.
All right.
I want her to record it in the studio. It was done live, but at least I think you got to record it. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. We definitely want to maybe give some of our listeners the background on the FutureCom Pavilion, which was over in Communicore West, which sadly I think we have to report here that the photos coming out of Epcot Center in the past week have shown just a steel structure of that area. So it is unfortunately being demolished. I'm watching how you're rubbing your eyes.
Well,
Are you rubbing tears?
I'm tearing up. Yeah,
you're tearing up. So
you can imagine how I felt after they stopped running the song and changed it to, I think it was video games. After 10 years, they ran it for 10 years.
Right, yeah.
And then
in Communicore West, there was an exhibit by Bell Systems, which later became AT&T, called FutureCom, and in there we had the Fountain of Information, and the World Key Information System was there. But one of the exhibits was called the Age of Information, which was a very it was a automaton almost, how you could say, robotic. How would you classify it?
I would say if it was a mechanical display, kind of like what you would see, in store windows at Christmas time, back in the 60s and the 70s, but on a massive scale. So if you picture something that's about 50 feet long and probably about 30 or 40 feet high, with these wonderful folk art styled, very earthy, very organic sort of encapsulations of the ideas of each of the different sections. That's what you got to see. So you would come over, and there was as we'll talk about, there were different sections of the song, and each lyric of the song was kind of represented by one of these mechanical devices. So there was a family, a mom and a dad, and a son, I believe, and it was fascinating because like their chests would open up and little figures would come out, and there were people working on, people working in an office. There was a whole Ferris wheel of little characters that were in the office of the future and all kinds of wonderful stuff. So you'd kind of come over, and as the song would play, the lights would come on and light up a certain section, whatever they were talking about, and the area would spring to life, and you would stand there and listen to the song and watch it and basically take in what became our life today.
Yeah.
Perfectly described in 1982.
And I think that's kind of my first question is that, Tom, I'd love to hear the background of how you were challenged with this, and what were you given by Bell Labs? Bell Labs came out of Columbia University. There were a lot of high tech things going on there at the time. So we'd love to understand a little bit of the backstory before we even get to the song and the lyrics,
and how your relationship with AT&T started that brought you, or the Bell system started that brought you to the job and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah, they actually did commission me to do it. I had done some other work for AT&T and for New York Telephone, which when I was doing work for them, they were still part of. That was before the Bell system was, broken apart.
Yes.
So I worked for New York Telephone and done some, traveling exhibits, original music and lyrics for that. And the people there remembered me, and when they were developing this exhibit, at Epcot, they called me and said, we'd love for you to write a song to illustrate some of these new advancements in telecommunications. And so I spent quite a bit of time. They would put me together with some of the technical people and who were developing these things, and I had a lot of literature, to go through to try to pick what to do. And also, I think at the same time, they knew they wanted to divide it into those sections, the home, the office, the transportation, and we're working with the Einsels on that. So we kind of worked together, knowing what it was going to be, and then they said, we'll start the song with the home, and then people will be walking that direction, I believe, and so that's basically how it went. But I did spend quite a bit of time, getting all this information about new inventions and new developments in the communications. And I just recently listened to the song again, and I was kind of amazed myself that we're doing all these things, and we weren't then. In 1982, we were doing hardly any of that.
Now, did
answering machines? Yes.
Yeah, did they walk you through any of their labs, or did they kind of guide you on, hey, this is something we're working on, or was this your own imagination at work with just kind of an idea of the future?
Well, they gave me a lot of written literature and talked to me. I don't remember whether I might have visited Bell Labs, but mainly they probably gave me a lot of literature and talked to me a lot about it and said, these are the important things we're developing, and and then left it to me to figure out how to put it into a lyric and with the music, with the rhymes and so forth and so on. But it was a fun project, and they bought a 10-year license to exclusively have the song for 10 years. And so I can remember my lawyer at the end of the 10 years called AT&T and said, well, Mr. Tierney's here, and if you're going to run it some more, we have to renegotiate. They said, well, no, guess what? We're not doing it. We're not doing it after 10 years. We're replacing it with, I think it turned out to be kind of video kind of stuff that kids could play with.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway.
Officially from 1982 to 1994 was the official length of it there. Well, at least FutureCom, maybe this portion of it, right. The Age of Information take out.
They owe you for 2 years. You need to go back to
that'd be great, actually.
Yeah. Get some royalties on that. So Hal, I'm sure you've got questions on the song and everything.
I do. I mean, one of the things, I try to do as much research as I can, because that's just who I am. And one of the things that I discovered was that I think you have the first instance of the term smartphone in smart telephone anywhere.
I was, when I listened to the song recently, I made a note of that. I mean, smart, I don't know where that came from, whether that was a term they gave me, or whether it just, because of everything the new phones were going to do, it just sounded like they're going to be smart. And so I may have used it for that reason. I don't really remember how that word got in the song.
Yeah,
but it's interesting. It is interesting.
It is. Again, we talk about this all the time, but it's just astounding. Like the laundry list of things that we take for granted today, from online reservations to shopping at home, security, email, voicemail, like literally everything is packed into this song. It's
and they told me all this. They said this is all going to happen, and I said okay, fine, I'll write about it. But like your phone will be a computer. I noticed that was in the song,
right?
Which who would have thought, And you can make bank deposits and do voicemail and to listen to a later date and so forth and so on. I'm sure.
Amazing. And I don't think they probably weren't thinking, wireless at that point, but still, I mean, it's right. To me, it's amazing how, they were obviously working on all this technology, and they were probably thinking of use cases for fiber optics and all this stuff that they could do. But oh my goodness. There are so many future, thinking things that completely missed the mark. And this nailed every aspect of our lives with communication today.
You mentioned fiber optics, and in the song, I think there's something about the sending signals on a thread of glass so small. And that I guess that's fiber optics, basically.
That is.
Yeah. I think what's really what resonates so much with us today is that you start off in the song with a newfangled smart telephone, and the word "it" is then used in a number of the different vocalists, and it's just the whole half of the song is about what we do today too, right? It's just all right there. The other one that gave us a really big chuckle, this goes back when we first talked to Lisa, it was the line of if you want that data, you'll get the data, and only the data you need. And that was about 2-3 months after the whole Facebook data breach and everything. And it was just I mean, that whole line is just exactly what it is. You'll get the data, but the data you need and the data you're allowed to see, you know?
Yeah.
So
and I had no idea what I was writing about. You know, they just said, this is what's going to be happening. Just write about it. Wait till I tell you, the song ended up being about 4 minutes plus, I think. But the original song, they wanted it to be kind of a moving ramp, you know, through the exhibit. And so my original song was like around 7 minutes.
Oh, wow.
But then when they changed their minds and decided it should be a walkthrough instead. They said, well, nobody's going to spend 7 minutes, you know, looking at this thing, because it had a lot of detail about all the aspects, you know, the home, and then the office, and then the transportation. So I'd written all these other lyrics about all these other things. In fact, just the other day at my home, I found a recording of that original 7 minute.
Oh, wow.
I haven't
the hair.
I haven't listened to
the hair on the back of my neck just stood up as you said that.
So after doing all that work and all that recording, we had to go back into the studio and then cut.
Wow.
To get it down to the 4 minutes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, you know, the lyrics coming together with the actual song. And Lisa, please chime in here. You and Hal are more musically. I can basically play the Fisher-Price xylophone. That's about it. So, you know, I'm curious. I don't understand the whole process of making songs. So Lisa and Hal, fire away. I'd love to understand that better.
I'm just curious, I'm sure there were certain things that they wanted you to be sure to mention, but it is fascinating and so interesting to think about going through all of the literature and kind of boiling it down to the essential things that had to be included. And I'm surprised to hear that it was 7 minutes long. It must have been so difficult to decide what to include and what to leave out, and then how it all fit in with the visual piece of it too.
You know, the other thing is that as a songwriter, I wanted it to be hooky. And so, you know, that the chorus of we're making the world smaller and bringing, you know, leading up to bringing the world closer. I wanted there to be sort of a hooky chorus that repeated, which we were able to do.
Mission accomplished. You know, I think everybody who hears it gets stuck in their head forever.
No, that's good. You know, because, you know, Disney World is a place people, you know, families go with their kids. And I thought, well, this should be the kind of thing that kids can grab onto it. So it shouldn't be too complicated, even though some of these ideas are complicated. But I wanted to throw out some of the ideas and then say, but we're making the world smaller, you know, we're bringing the world closer to you, you know, as a hook that would repeat.
There's so much information, and it's super catchy too.
Yeah, and I really love the way that this song gets so bright and optimistic, just in the chords you're using, and like that whole thing. It really, I don't know, you know, it could be a very dry song, but like you hit that chorus, and all of a sudden it's like it's very uplifting, and I think the listener feels that. So that was really nicely done.
Well, I also I think took a cue from the design of the folk sculpture that Walter and Naya did. Naya, is she your grandmother too?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I got to know them both pretty well. I went up to their home with someone from AT&T, and we had a long meeting, and they made a wonderful lunch for us, which was great. And their home was so interesting. It was kind of full of unique things that they had designed and done. And to this day, hanging in my office, I had I'd gotten sick and had to go in the hospital for a day or two. It wasn't anything serious, but they did a piece of artwork and sent it to me. And to this day, I have it framed up because it's just beautiful. So anyway, they were great to work with. And but they had, you know, they were starting to get their ideas about what it was going to look like. And then also seeing, maybe they had, I can't even remember now, but they may have had, you know, illustrations or drawings of what they were going to do. And so that folk idea too, that's why I made it, you know, the song had some of those folky kind of feels, almost country folk, you know, with that. So that was an inspiration, you know, in how the song got formed, you know.
So did you work pretty closely together? were you brought in around the same time for this project, or?
They had already been. I think they had already been hired to do it, and I think they were probably told the same kinds of things, that I was, about what the different features were going to be of the future telecommunications. So I think they were a little bit ahead of me, and I think maybe they had even designed some of the things that popped out of you talked about the little things that popped out of, like the vest of the father and the section about the home and the mother and so forth. So I think some of that had already been decided, so that helped me decide what to include in the song. So there was some back and forth, but and they were just delightful to work with, and we exchanged holiday cards for many, many years.
That's awesome. We want to let the listeners know that Walter and Nyad Einsel were Lisa's grandparents, and they did all the work and the design work. Lisa, real quick, how much influence and stuff did your grandmother have on it? Did Nyad have on it?
This is a little bit new to me, because my grandfather is credited with designing the exhibit, but they did work very closely on just about everything. So it's not totally surprising that she would have been involved. Their styles were so similar that they could kind of pick up where the other one left off for the whole time that from pretty much the moment that they met, they were able to share work and help each other out. But it is new to hear that she was as involved in this. I think that there was a series of posters that she did for AT&T where she was
really?
And I wish I had a picture of those. But
when I had the first meeting with them, we drove up to their home, and it was meeting with the two of them, and so all my contact was always with the two of them. But that was when it was, just being formulated. It hadn't been finalized in final design and so forth. But I always had the feeling that she worked with him very closely.
Their desks were side by side, and my grandfather had a studio that was in a barn that he built that was separate from the house. But I think most every job they had, they would sort of ask each other for their feedback or just critique their work so far, just generating ideas. I
had the feeling maybe that she was involved, the two of them together, so the ideas are being formulated and so forth, but maybe he then did the final executions, especially of the actual sculpture. I didn't go, but I think one of the AT&T people I was working with mentioned to me, now I'm just remembering, that he went up to see it, and he did go into this building you're talking about that was, outside their home, right? It was like a barn or a work area. And they had this meeting with him, and he showed them the as it was coming together. So that's sort of a scant recollection of things, but.
And that was probably, Lisa, you had shared some pictures with us, and I sent some contact sheets over to Tom so he could see. You had shared us a photo of what we believe is more of a maquette or a demo installation, only maybe 8 feet long by maybe 4 feet high or so. And I think you believe that that's what your grandfather actually created in his workshop in Connecticut, right?
Yeah, I think he made a scale model, and then there was a team of designers who built the actual exhibit.
Yeah, and Lisa, I think when we did our original episode, we kind of undersold your grandmother's like her career, because when I was doing research, I think she actually had the art director role, and I can't remember if it was with ABC or CBS first.
Well, they had a sweet story of how they met. She was an art director at CBS.
Okay.
And my grandfather had the same job at NBC. And her boss invited him to come in for an interview, mainly because he thought that they should meet each other. It was love at first sight, and they were inseparable from that.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And I remember going to the opening, at the very opening day, and they were there, and we also were all invited to a dinner AT&T held for all the creators of that whole section, and so it was always fun to be with them and get to know them. They were great.
So Tom, what year do you remember starting this? I know, Lisa, on your website, which is nyadandwalter.com, you mentioned 1979. So you were probably coming in more around 1980, 81, somewhere in there?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I would say 81. I don't believe. You can tell me what month it opened in 82? I'm talking about Disney World. I mean Epcot. Excuse me, Epcot.
October 1982.
October. Okay. So I have a feeling I started sometime in 81, probably the year before.
Songs go a little quicker than actually building things, I suppose.
I would imagine. Yes.
And you were there for the grand opening as well, it sounds like.
I was. Yes, I was.
Okay.
And,
fantastic.
That was exciting.
So, Lisa, I know you have photos of your trip down there. Are there any photos of your grandfather at the grand opening or anything like that? I know you shared us one with you and him standing at the Magic Kingdom.
That was the only one that I could find. I wish
really?
there were more. Yeah.
It would just be so funny to see Tom and your grandfather just hanging out together.
I wish I had a photo of that. I remember reception, and we were all together at a reception. Maybe it was the night before the opening. It was a several-day event.
Oh wow, yeah. So did you go to the full Epcot opening and you saw all the different opening ceremonies, or was it just for your event, or how did that happen?
No, it was. Let's see. It was all of Epcot. I mean, it was the opening, I think, of the whole thing, wasn't it? And so, yes, I was there that day, and it was very exciting, really.
I know that pavilion has a special place in my heart, and just because I remember my grandfather standing in front of it with my little sister dancing on his hip and standing there dancing. We've got video of it, and that. But I can only imagine. You mentioned a little earlier that it was going to be a walkthrough. My sister wouldn't have been able to dance. So, tell us a little bit about how the song was going to be longer. And
well, I think they originally thought they would have like a moving ramp, and that people would stand on the ramp and it would go at a rate so that you'd hear what the song was talking about and see the sculptor illustrating that as the ramp moved. But the 7-minute song, I think decided it was much too long for a ramp to go, and they changed their minds. They said, no, we're not doing a ramp, a movable ramp. People are just going to walk through at their own pace, and so therefore the song is much too long, and you're going to have to cut it back. So I think a lot of the lyrics about the section on The Office are mainly on transportation. I think that was the big section that was cut. Now that we've had this discussion, and when I go back home, because I'm in Florida now, and I'm not at my home where I have that recording of the 7-minute version to try to revisit that and see what were those lyrics like.
Yeah.
That were left out.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you can confirm for us whether it was transportation or not, because it almost makes sense with being AT&T more about communication and such, that's really the turn that whole pavilion took, was about getting in touch with each other, reach out and touch someone, as we know is one of the... You didn't happen to write reach out and touch someone, did you? Was that yours?
No, I did not. The first section there was the home, and so that was the first thing that I wrote, I'm pretty sure. And then the next section over, I believe, was the office, and so that... about sending data, medical information, and, sending data, the teleconference calls, and things like that. So I think you're right. Those were probably considered by AT&T the more important things. And that there was, I guess, also telecommunications involved in transportation. I can't remember what those things were, but I must have written about them. That's probably the section that mostly got cut.
If you predicted high-speed internet at 30,000 feet, I'm going to be just floored. I already am floored with the lyrics.
I wish I could take credit for inventing some of these things, but no.
We remember it. That's the key.
Yeah.
How on this idea of a moving walkway and the speed ramp, how long did the Space Mountain exit take before they took that out? How long was that?
That was a long. That was a pretty.
It was
long.
Yeah.
That was at least 4-5 minutes, maybe. I'm trying to think, because that one had a song that ran with it too. Yeah. There's another attraction there that uses a speed ramp to take you by show scenes, and there's a song that goes along with it, and it's quite a long distance because in that case, you needed to go underneath the train tracks and then up into Space Mountain rather than have you walk a long distance, and then you have to kind of do the same thing to get back out again, where you go underneath the train tracks and then up and around. So. Right. They put in a home of future living there with a ramp and a song that RCA sponsored. But I mean, in order to do a moving walkway, I mean, the exhibit space would have had to have been humongous.
You're right.
Yeah.
That must have dawned on everybody after I wrote the song, and yes, we knew what we were writing about and so forth. But I said, well, let's just people will not wait around for that if they're walking through.
And I assume. Plans in the I think plans in the late 70s and early 80s were still a little fluid for those areas. So when they finally started to nail stuff down is probably when they realized, okay, we can't for budget and space constraints and everything else. It's like, let's stick to this walk up.
From a technology standpoint too, keeping a song in sync with everybody seeing the right thing at the right time over a moving walkway. I don't know if the technology for speakers and, how we talk about what they did on Horizons, but you were in an individual vehicle and it had to cut in and out. But trying to sync an entire walkway and seeing the right thing at the right time, a static display really was able to cater that to the song.
Well, I was thinking about that too, because if you got on the ramp and if you were the person who got at the ramp right at as the song began and you were in front of, then you had the perfect show. But if you were 10 people down, everything was off. So
all the doors were closed every time I went there. Right. Everything stopped moving.
Well, it's true that that as they talked about the home and some of these features, the light lighting would light the father, and the vest would open up and things would come out, and it was coordinated. And I was actually wondered myself how they did that, coordinated the audio with some of these cues. And someone at some point, I don't remember now quite when I was told this, but that they had it was like a disc, a CD disc. And now that was before CDs, I think, even came out. And somehow they had a CD disc that also could cue the lighting. So everything was automatic. There wasn't somebody there doing that. So that was kind of like they were kind of ahead of their time in playing the song on a disc. I mean, a special disc, that could also do other data at the same time.
So they used a lot of laser discs then, and
they did. It was set up on a laser disc of some sort. I never did see it. I was just told this at one point, and then that's how, it wasn't like audio tape. At the time, that was the popular playback thing, and so that wears out, and so I think they were looking for something that wouldn't wear out, and then they ended up using a digital on a CD, kind of a CD type of situation, but I don't think I ever saw it, and so I'm kind of imagining what it was. but that's the way it was explained to me. So something that could, and the song did repeat 144 times a day and played for 10 years. So I think somebody told me they produced a number of these discs in case one would wear out. There was a problem or it was damaged. They have replacement.
Oh, sure, ready to go.
I have something else to tell you about. When I would go back and visit the exhibit 2 or 3 years later and meet up with the AT&T people who were basically manning the exhibit and helping people out and so forth and so on, there was this complaint about, this song plays 144 times a day and we have to listen to it. I mean, but then the bottom line was they said, but then after a while, it just sort of became wallpaper, it didn't bother us so much. But.
It's funny. I see this thing from cast members where they go through this period of time, because there's music playing everywhere, as I'm sure you realize as you go through the parks. And they go through this phase where it's like they come in and it's new, and then after a few months, it becomes irksome, and then after they leave, it's almost like it's this comforting thing that they put on again in the background to listen to because it reminds them of the good times that they had when they were. I see that comment over and over again from old cast members who have left. So initially it's annoying, and then after a while it probably fades out, and then they just pine for it again because it was just such a part of their experience that that's what music is, right? It's something that touches your soul and it becomes part of your emotional being, and it's true of that that as well.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool.
Do you recall anything about the recording session? Was it a studio that used a lot, or singers that you used quite often? Or
do you know the names of the singers too?
I probably know most of them. I used singers like they're called jingle singers, or studio singers that did a lot of commercials, and they did a lot of other work for me. Marlene LePlank, she did a lot of cabaret singing in New York. A couple of Magruders, Charles and June Magruder. Marty Nelson, who's still around. He actually did the solo in the beginning, and he did a lot of the solo throughout. Jimmy Campbell, he was a very successful jingle singer. Did a lot of Coca-Cola stuff. And there's one other person, and I can't think who that is at this point. But there were 6 singers on it, and then we did a lot of overdubbing. So on the choruses, they might have sung them 2 or 3 times to get a big choral sound.
Right.
And we had a pretty big orchestra. Billy Verplank was the orchestrator. The singer, Margaret, escaped me. Anyway, she was a famous singer from the 40s and 50s. Anyway, now I can't think of her last name. I'm sorry about that. But she came to the session. She was there. And it was a wonderful session. It was great. Well, we recorded the music first, and then the singers came in and overdubbed the vocals.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, it's amazing that you managed to remember all of that. So, thank you.
Oh, Margaret, excuse me. Yeah, Margaret Whiting. I just remembered. Margaret Whiting. She was a recording artist, and she was the daughter of a famous, band leader, musician from the 30s and the 40s. So she was at the session.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, there we just opened up a whole nother can of worms for me to explore now of who all these people were and all the other things that they did. So thank you. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Lisa, it was funny. I was looking here and I go down rabbit holes when we talk, and I didn't realize this, that your grandparents were the first husband and wife team to create a postage stamp as well. The 1973 8-cent Progress in Electronics. With a circuit board on it, which we have a circuit board in
right.
Is so cool. So now I want to look at the circuit board. This is where I really geek out. I want to look at the circuit board of the stamp and see if there's any relation to the circuit board in the event. I'm sorry.
I think one of the stamps was had to do with recording technology.
Oh, really?
Did
they do multiple?
I think there were 4. There might have been one that was either radio or recording technology. I can try to look it up right now, actually.
Interesting. Yeah, I found the circuit board one, which is really interesting, and I remember there being a circuit board in the AT&T exhibit, which was really cool. So
I'm already on Margaret Whiting, who was her father. Her father Richard wrote "Hooray for Hollywood." Right, Richard Whiting. We got blood, yes. And on the good ship Lollipop. And her sister Barbara was an actress and a singer, and her aunt Margaret Young was a singer and popular recording artist in the 1920s. So
she did a lot of recording, and you can still on some radio stations that play oldies, you still hear her recordings, and she was really a terrific singer. She was great.
Oh my gosh, she's got a whole bunch of number 1 hits. Tree in a Meadow, number 1, 1948. Slipping Around, number 1 in 1949.
Oh my god! Wow.
Yeah, that's so she was still out doing gigs at that time.
She wasn't a singer. She was a friend of Marlene LePlank, who was one of our singers.
Gotcha.
And Marlene LePlank had invited her to a session because Marlene's husband was the orchestrator.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's so great. Oh my gosh.
Now, how many takes do songs like this normally take when you're in the studio, with the orchestra? I mean, it's time consuming and it's expensive, I'm sure, to have everybody there. So, is this something that you were able to knock off in a day, or?
Yes, we recorded the orchestra in one day, and then I believe we brought the singers in the next day.
Okay.
And it takes a while, not a long while, but the New York musicians are so fast and really good at just reading stuff off the page and making it sound like they've rehearsed it for years. And so, they do like a couple of run-throughs of a song, and then usually after a couple of run-throughs, they would have it. But sometimes we'd record it in sections, like we might do the first minute and a half, stop, and then do the next minute or so, and then later on edit it together, so that they could rehearse the section and then record it. And it varied. But see, the song had these different feels, kind of, different feels as it went along. So that made it a little easier.
Right. All of a sudden you're throwing the in Adam and Land.
Oh yeah. And then with the singers, the same thing. They would come in and they hadn't seen the music ahead of time at all, and we would gather around the piano and plunk out some of the notes, but they all could read it right off the page. After rehearsal or two, a run through, they would have it, and then they'd start to record. And then for something you wanted to replace something, or you can just, we always kind of punching in. So we would, you'd play what they'd done, and then if you wanted to replace a lyric or a word or a phrase, you would just punch in that they'd just be recording, and then punch out, so that then when you play it back, it sounded like it was all done in one performance. So usually you get the first take with the singers, and then a lot of times on the choral stuff, we would double it or triple it, and then once they had a version of it, then the doubles and the triples would go really fast. But the whole process, and it was a long song, the original was 7 minutes, so it was a good long session. It was probably 3 or 4 hours, and then we go back and either that day later mix or the following day. It was a project that took several days.
Were you able to edit the original 7-minute recording down, or did you have to re-record?
No, we were able to edit it. We were able to.
Oh,
edit
that's
it.
good.
Yeah, that was good. And I don't know if you even need to hear this or not, but one of the reasons why the song starts with a fade up, it's like the orchestra fades up, is because we were. I mean, I think I'd written a whole lot of stuff, when the song began, and we just weren't able to preserve that and do a proper edit to get it down to the 4 minutes. So that I was never very happy about that, but nobody really seemed to notice or care that much. But to this day, I hear that, I say, I wish we hadn't had to do that.
Well, now I'm going to have to listen for that.
No, it's
I
there.
Didn't notice that.
Well, maybe it's a subtle thing, and I only hear it because I was there.
Well, if you know it's there, I'm sure it stands out to you.
The orchestra comes in very quickly, and it kind of like fades up, as opposed to being a really clean start. It's a fade up, and because we had to go in on a section and they, AT&T did not want to bring an orchestra back just to record a few things here and there. They just thought we can edit. Come on, you guys can edit that. Come on.
So do you know, does that full fade up exist on the 7-minute version?
No, I'm sure it doesn't. No, I mean,
okay.
I say that I haven't heard that since 1980.
It's so long.
Wow.
But
I
anyway,
wonder if that's something.
I presume it had a clean start, and there might have been a key change or something. So it was just impossible to, it was impossible to try to put it together and include the original, the very opening of the song. And so I it's sort of, this is all very vague in my head right now, but anyway, I was ultimately pleased with the way it was edited. I mean, I think it was fine.
I wonder if now, with advances in recording technology, if it would have been possible to do that, in Pro Tools versus...
Maybe more so in the fact that you can change keys so easily now.
That's
just
true,
pushing buttons.
Auto-tune.
Exactly.
And an unlimited amount of tracks to record things on. And
even back then, though, I think we had at least 24 tracks, and that seeed like a lot at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What could we possibly need 32 for? No.
But it was before digital. Yeah.
It was okay. So this was all analog. Yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely reel to reel tape.
Yeah.
Do you know where the original recordings live? Is that something that you have, like all the actual?
Probably in my basement. I have a
tapes.
basement full of a huge bookshelf, but it's all these 24 tracks and 16 track tapes that are doing no good whatsoever. But I don't want to throw them away. So.
Well, before you throw them away, please donate them to Will. We'll listen to them. We promise.
if there's anybody around that can even play them. The problem too is these old tapes. They sometimes they won't play back. That you have to bake them. You have to go to a special, place to bake them and to get them to play. So, but I haven't. There's been no reason for me to revisit some of the stuff and go bake it. Let's put it that way. But I do have this. It's actually it's an LP of the 7-minute version. I just saw it just recently in my basement. So that would be pretty well preserved, I would think. So I can probably have that transferred to a digital format. I was going to say, people have encouraged me, from time to time, people who are fans of the song, get it out there, put it on iTunes, get it, whatever. But instead, I just put it on my website. I just did my website last year, and that's how you found me, right?
That is how we found you. Yeah. It's funny because out of, so much of the music from the park, from Epcot, it was either on the official album but like your song was the one that was not ever included with any of the official Disney releases. So it's become, kind of like this holy grail for a lot of us.
Yeah. We should have a talk with them about that.
Yeah.
That reminds me, when I first wrote the song, I went for the opening. AT&T had created a plaque they put up kind of on the side of the exhibit, gave credits to the Einsels and, or maybe it was to Walter, I don't remember exactly. And then, music and lyrics by Thomas Tierney, blah, blah, blah. So, but then the next thing you know, my contact at AT&T said, well, said that Disney actually didn't want to give credit to anybody, so they made them remove the credit plaque. So that was it.
Wow.
And the only surviving information that we have that actually gave credit to Einsel was it on Blueprints?
No, it was. I think it was Lisa's video. Oh, there were two things.
Oh, actually, that's right.
Yeah, there were two things. Your video said Einsel Theater on it, and then on the cast member, on like the training sheets they would give people, it was designated as the Einsel Theater, at least so they could refer to it, internally as something. But other than that, though, there was no official designation. Like you said, that would have been nice to see that plaque before it disappeared because.
That's very typical of Disney, though. They want to own everything.
Yes, it is.
So the fact that AT&T had commissioned me to do it and basically paid for it, somehow they. However, the day that I went for the opening, they had a group of singer-dancers who did a whole big song and dance presentation about all of Epcot. But they included in that portion of my song that they sang for the very, very opening when you first entered the park. And so, my song was included there. So they actually did.
Oh, fantastic.
They nodded.
That's cool.
My way,
cool.
here and there.
Well, speaking of your song, what I'd like to do for you now, Tom, is I have the MP3 here of Lisa's performance at our Retro Magic event back in. Yes, we are going to play it, Lisa. Lisa, we received many, many compliments on the song. Now, so I'd love to play it here. So Tom, you can hear it for the first time, and our listeners can, who weren't at the event can certainly hear it. So with your permission, Tom, we'd love to play this and let you hear
why not?
Lisa's rendition of Bringing the World Closer to You.
Now Mom and Dad and Junior can own a newfangled smart telephone. It's amazing all the things it can do as it brings the world closer to you. You can sit right there in your easy chair and check the stock report On a screen at home, make plans to roam to your favorite ski resort. It'll bring the world closer to you. There's a wonderful change coming, a beautiful day dawning, a miracle we're seeing come true. 'Cause the age of information is sweeping across the nation and bringing the world closer to you. It will call the cops on a robber. It will help the kids with their homework. It will hook your home to your office, send your heartbeat clear across town. It will give you all kinds of freedom, like when you wanna go shopping. It'll bring the store to your front door. It's the handiest thing around. And it brings the world closer to you. And it's making the world better. It's making the world smaller. It's giving the world something brand new. 'Cause the age of information is sweeping across the nation and bringing the world closer to you. Now the miracles have only begun in the places where our business gets done. The office of tomorrow will be the very model of efficiency. If you want data, you'll get that data, and only the data you need. And the words are moving and the mail is moving with electronic speed. You will talk to two or quite a few on a teleconference call, and the chips are sorting and the data's moving on a thread of glass so small. As it brings the world closer to you. Your phone will be a computer. It will make your bank deposits. It will mail your voice like a letter, where it can wait to a later date to communicate. So we're making the world better. We're making the world smaller. We're bringing the world something brand new. 'Cause the age of information is sweeping across the nation and bringing the world closer to you. And your voice is traveling and your words are moving and the wires are humming a song. And the world is changing and the country's changing, so won't you come along on this wondrous journey to the information age. There's a wonderful change coming, a beautiful day dawning, a miracle we're seeing come true. 'Cause the age of information is sweeping across the nation and bringing the world closer to you. Closer to you, closer to you, bringing the world closer to you.
Lisa Bastoni.
Thank you so much.
Yay! Oh,
Yes.
that's wonderful. My gosh, that was
Oh, thank you.
great. Oh, and you hit all the melody just right.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, that's tough to do. No, I can see that it would be hard to sing that song. But you did a great job. Really nice.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, all the little laughs I think is where you were trying to like find your place in
I was looking
with the
behind
video.
me and
Yeah,
trying to keep track of where I was on the stage.
that was hard.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Lisa, you got tweeted out a number of times. I know I had a couple people actually ask me after the event, can I get a copy of that?
Oh, really?
And Yeah, one of my friends who was there, actually Jim Lemus, he was one of our VIPs. I gave him the MP3, and he actually he sings along to it to put his daughter to sleep at night sometimes. So
that's sweet.
Yep.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's neat. Well, this has been quite a little adventure back in time, and really bringing a lot of different people together. We're bringing the world closer to you through podcasts, I guess, and and finding stuff. So. So Tom, this has been great. We're really interested in the 7-minute version. So we'll let our listeners know. Yeah. Well, that's definitely something I think our listeners that would be awesome. And Lisa, it's wonderful to have you back on the show as well. And I know we've still got a couple little things to do. We got to scan some more artwork and different things that you've got, and we're looking forward to doing that in a little bit as well. And maybe you'll make a studio version. Maybe we'll see this hit the Billboard Top 100 here. And, it's a quite pertinent song too. The world's changing, the smartphone, and the country's changing. It certainly is. So it's really quite a
Tom, are you still active? Is there anything that you want to promote while we have the opportunity and listeners?
Oh gosh. Well, I started out being a songwriter, interested in musical theater and writing shows, and but that when I came to New York, I started getting hired to do shows for companies, really, and then that took me into so many different styles and so forth. But anyway, I've written several musicals, and one is called Eleanor, an American Love Story. It's about the young lives of Eleanor and Franklin Roosevelt, and that's going to be playing at the Media Theater in Media, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Philadelphia, starting, I think it's January 29 through February 23rd, something like that. Wow. So anyway, it's played around the country at the Ford's Theater and some other places. And I have a musical, Narnia, based on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's played all over the country and really in London and many other places. But anyway, and that's actually playing right now in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Serenbe Playhouse in an immersive style. So
cool.
So that's a couple of musicals I've written that are out there being performed, and then I have a bunch of stuff that I'm writing and new things too. So
fantastic.
Anyway,
and we
keep at it.
Excellent.
And we do have quite a few people from the theme park industry that listen to the show. So if you guys need a song for any attractions you're working on, Tom is still available.
Right.
Oh, sure. I'm writing all the time, as a matter of time. And if just if you want to use the song in some way, I mean, the actual recording, I don't know why you couldn't, play it.
Right. That's true. Yeah, we didn't know who owned it when we were doing our research. We're like, what can we do with this? I don't know. So we're glad we found you. And
well, I'm glad you found me too. This has been a lot of fun.
And Lisa, how about you? You have a new album, right?
I do have a new album. It came out in September, and it's called How We Want to Live, and it's available everywhere. Well, on Spotify, iTunes, through my website, lisabastoni.com.
So we'll look out to both of your websites in the show notes for the article that goes along with this episode, so that we get some new listeners and maybe some people attending your music events all around the country, because you're on tour as well, right, Lisa? You've got some shows coming up. I'm looking.
I have been. This fall was very busy. It's slowing down a little bit, but pick up again next spring probably. And then I'll be around the Northeast.
But yeah, if you're in the Massachusetts region, if she's in your neighborhood, and well, we really appreciate you both joining us tonight. This has been a great little look back in time, and I think we're gonna end the show with the original cut of the song, Tom, so that our listeners can compare the two. And we really thank you for your time. And
well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Well, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for joining us tonight. Have a great night. Also, don't forget to catch us next month in 2020, where we enter the year of the film. Hal is deep in research in his own memories for the Backlot Tour, so episode 55 is guaranteed to be a good one. I'm excited about it. We've got all sorts of new video footage of it. So Hal, any real quick hints on how deep we're going to go? I know we're going to kind of line up with Galaxy's Edge too, but where else are we going?
Yeah, so we're going to hit all the big guys. We're going to look at the Boneyard. We're going to look at Catastrophe Canyon.
the queue for me, because it's still there.
We're primarily going to focus on the backlot tour. So that'll be starting over by the Disney Animation Studios and then going through
Wardrobe.
Wardrobe and the bungalows, and then right on over to Catastrophe Canyon and all that good stuff. The water tank
and New York Street. You couldn't walk on it yet.
Yep. And we'll take a really good look at Residential Street and all the different houses and their architectural styles, and then we'll talk about where all that stuff is today in relation to Galaxy's Edge and the Toy Story Land.
That's right. Now watch, the tram doors are coming down, so watch out on those. And if you look off to the right-hand side of the tram, you can see the interior of a Delta Airlines. This has been used for many commercials over the years, filmed as we exit the tunnel. We'll tell you more next month. Hal's laughing. He remembers that part of the tour.
Got to drop that Passenger 57 reference in there.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening. Give us a shout out on iTunes, a review if you can. We'll be back with you next month, episode 55, the Backlot Tour. We'll see you then. And with that, Brian, take us out.
Follow the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society on Twitter and Instagram at LBVHistory and on the web at lbvhistory.org. Follow Todd McCartney and RetroWDW on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at RetroWDW. For all things Retro Disney World, including exclusive merchandise, visit us on the web at RetroWDW.com. On Twitter, follow our web designer, Jason Bartel of Deepwater Studios, at JasonDWS. Our announcer, Andre Gardner, at Andre Gardner. And follow our hosts, Hal Bowers, on Twitter and Instagram, at GoAwayGreen, and on the web at kingdomofmemories.com. For JT Cougar on Twitter, at LS1JT, on YouTube at Rubber City Motoring, and on the web at rubbercitymotoring.com. And you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, at Brian P. Miles. Retro Disney World is the monthly podcast of the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society, a nonprofit, nonpartisan, tax-exempt 501c3 organization, and is not affiliated in any way with the Walt Disney Corporation or any of its subsidiary or affiliated entities.